Good afternoon, Year 5. It's Mr. Turnbull here with your last lesson before the weekend. It's going to be an RE lesson following on from Mr. Forster's lesson last time. And today's learning question is going to be, what metaphors are used for God? In the last lesson, we looked at different words that are used to describe God, and that's really going to link in and help us with this lesson that we're carrying out today. Now, we looked at lots of different reasons for why God might have been called different names, and we also looked at the Lord's Prayer and changed that so we could understand it a little bit better and using more vocabulary that we'll use in modern day. And we're going to do something a little bit similar to that today because we're going to be looking at metaphors for God. So before we can do that, what is a metaphor? This is a little bit of an English skill that we've looked at in class, but it's always good to have a little bit of a recap. So, have we looked at metaphors for God before? A metaphor is a comparison which is not literally true, but it suggests what something is like by comparing it with something else with similar characteristics. So as you can see, below, we've got a little example there. And I'm sure some of you who have siblings have used this one before. My brother is a piglet is a metaphor. This statement isn't literally true. A child cannot be a pig, but the brother can share a pig's characteristics, like eating lots or liking to play in the mud. I'm sure some of you have called your siblings things like that before. Now, if you look at have we used a metaphor for God before, did we do that in the last lesson? Just pause the video and have a little think before we move on to the next part. Now, in the last lesson, we looked at God the Father. Now, if we look back at our definition for a metaphor, he isn't literally our Father. However, this is used to describe him by Christians all around the world. Why could this be, do you think? Could the word Father be associated with lots of different things that Christians believe? We're going to look at a few different examples as the presentation goes on. So, are there other metaphors for God in the Bible? This one is from Isaiah 64:8, and it says that, "Yet you, Lord, are our Father. We are the clay. You are the potter. We are all the work of your hand." Again, could you just pause the video? What are your thoughts on this? What could this metaphor mean? And I want your ideas now before we move on to the next part. What Christians may believe. So these are a few examples that I've found. It is up to God to mould, transform, and sanctify us as we journey through this earthly life. Another one. God can mould us as he wishes in order to make us better people. And finally, humans are a work of art which God has created. So did your ideas match to this? Were they similar? Were they along those lines? Or did you have totally different ideas? And do you think that's okay? Another thing I thought as we were going through this was I can think of loads of different words to describe God, and here's a few examples that I've got at the side. We could describe God as an artist, a creator, an influencer, or an advisor. Now, that's the purpose of a metaphor. It's open to interpretation quite a lot of the time as well, and sometimes it's what you think. And if you have a different idea, I think that's really good. Looking at it from another perspective, you could think about the pot itself. Is it saying that we can be changed or influenced in different ways so that we look different or we act different or we feel different? Could it mean that when the pottery's dry, we're quite fragile and it means that God's really powerful and he has the power to change us or break us at times? It's open to interpretation, and that's why metaphors are really good and a good thing to use. This extract from the Bible supports these thoughts. You turn things upside down, as if the potter were thought to be like the clay. Shall what is formed say to the one who formed it, "You did not make me"? Can the pot say to the potter, "You know nothing"? Now, like we did last lesson, I've found a new translation to make it a little bit more understandable for us today. How foolish can you be? He is the potter, and he is certainly greater than you, the clay. Should the created thing say of the one who made it, he didn't make me? Does a jar ever say, the potter who made me is stupid? Now, this is looking at it from a kind of a different perspective again, isn't it? So the words I thought I would use to describe God at this point, the way he's being portrayed, is the Almighty, the powerful, authoritative, intelligent. It's saying that he kind of guides us. He's the one with the power. He's the one with the knowledge. And he's the one that can influence us. The next metaphor is God as a shepherd. And this is from Psalm 103. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. So again, this is a totally different metaphor. It's something different to a potter. A shepherd has loads of different attributes that a potter may not, and vice versa. So the adjectives I've came up for or thought of are caring, provider, teacher, guide, nurturing. He lays down his life. All these things are associated with a shepherd, and this is a totally different point of view from what we looked at when we were looking at the potter. So what impact does this have on Christians? What does this tell us about Christians? Really, it shows us that these metaphors are used for God because they hold him in such high esteem. The things I've thought of is that it shows that Christians trust God, they have a strong belief, they'll listen to God, possibly change their lives or the way they live. They may feel positivity from God. They believe that he may look after us, he may care for us and nurture us. And also worship. Now this church looks a little bit familiar. Can anyone notice where it is? So these are going to be our learning tasks today. If the Bible were written today, what metaphors would be used to describe God? Can you write or draw these or make a display? That's going to be the overall outcome that I'm looking for. Now, each group's going to have different tasks slightly. So if you are in green group, what I would like you to do is to match a new metaphor to its meaning. So you're going to come up with a new metaphor that you think is good for God, and then you're going to explain what the meaning of that metaphor is to you from what we've learned today and previous lessons. If you're in red group, your job is to evaluate these metaphors and think of new ones for God. So think about the different metaphors we've looked at. We've looked at the father, the shepherd, the potter. Could you evaluate those? Can you tell me what you think about them? And then think of a new one for God. And again, you can explain why. And you can use pictures. You can set this out however you would like to. Purple group, your job is to evaluate the metaphors for God and devise new ones. So I really want you to think deeply. When I think of the word devise, it really makes me think you've thought deeply about it. I want good reasoning for why you've came up with these new metaphors. Okay, Year 5. Have a great weekend and see you next time.